So welcome everybody to another session of Logics in Quarentena. On behalf of the Brazilian Logic Society and of the Logic Interest Group of the Brazilian Computer Society, I'd like to thank Professor Jean-Yves Bezier, who will give the talk, The Mystery of Definitive Logical Notion. Yves.
Thank you very much, Bruno. And I'm glad to present this talk today. It's a work I am developing since more than 1 year. But this, more than 1 year, more than 10 years. But I start to work really closely to this notion, to this topic on last year about logical notion. And I think there are a lot of things to say. So not everything will be solved today. So, I will make a summarize of the problem because people were I presented the talk last year in this webinar, but some people here were not present. So I will summarize what is the question, what's the problem. So as it is explained here, let me make enlargement of this page. So last year, I was asked by Andre Schumann to write a paper in tribute of Jan Wolański with present here. Thank you very much, Jan, to be here for his 80th birthday. I hope to reach this age too. Not so easy, I mean. And so I was thinking, what kind of topic, what will be the topic I will talk about? But when you make a tribute to someone, it has to be connected to the person. So I choose this topic because, as I explained here, it's related both on the fundamental idea of the Polish school, of which Jan Wolański is one of the greatest specialists, and also it is related with the square of opposition. And my first idea was to make a square of opposition of these four logical notions. So I wanted to write a paper specifically on that. But for some reasons, when we start to work, I think it's a very interesting point of research. When we start to work, things change, So things are changing. So maybe it's still possible. Still, it's possible to write only a paper about the square of opposition of the logical notion. But on the one hand, the problem of the squaring of the logical opposition was not so easy. And on the other hand, I discovered another problem. I thought it was more interesting than the square. This is the problem of the fifth logical notion that I will talk about today. So, of course, on this site, you can see here on this site there is everything. It's a summary of all my research on this topic. So on this site, you can see here, if you click on the square, you can see the different situation of the square of opposition of the how we can square the four logical notions. There is a description of that in the paper I wrote last year. All right. So it's still part of my research. The squaring of the four logical notions. But then, before starting, let me also remember what's a bit of history about the logical notion, because I think it's very important. And since last year when I wrote this paper, I discovered new things. So, what are logical notions? Well, so there is a paper which was published by John Corcoran, edited and published by John Corcoran. Here you have the details. It was talks by Tarski and Corcoran wrote a paper on the basis of some TypeScript of some note and something, and it took for him a lot of work to do that. So it was not released before his death. That's the point. The paper was released in 96, and Tarski died in 93. But Corcoran was in close touch with Tarski. It's good to remember that he was editor of the second edition of sorry, of Logic, Semantic, and Mathematics. So Corcoran was in close touch with Tarski, and so he was asking all the time when where we shall publish your paper, we shall publish it, and so on. And Tarski would agree, but he didn't. Tarski was very busy, and so on. At some point, it was not published during his life. Anyway, Tarski approved most of he approved the manuscript. So we don't have doubt about the manuscript. What is written is basically the main idea of Tarski. He presented at some talks in the 60s, in the 66, and at this time. But there is another point. I will not enter in many historical details here until there are some questions. But there is some other points because Tarski himself, he said, well, this idea of logical notion, it was already published in a paper of mine with Lindenbaum in the 30s, you know. So we have here the whole details about that. So where the paper was published, it was a lecture by Tarski in Vienna. But the paper was published in the name of Lindenbaum and Tarski. Yes. So for this reason, it was published in German. And for this reason, we can think that this main idea is due to both of them. And if the name of Lindenbaum appears first, it's important to note that. And Tarski never made any comments about that. By the contrary, he finds us that the Lindenbaum-Tarski algebra were not due to Lindenbaum but by himself. So that's technical, that's important details about the history of logic. And there is another historical point, which is the following. Is that in his paper, it's a posthumous paper, Tarski writes this. This is what appears in the paper, no? Well, he is making here the connection with Felix Klein. And I don't know if this connection already was there at the time of Lindenbaum. That's an important question from the historical point of view. I will not give any answer here at this point because I don't know. Yeah. So in this paper, in the posthumous paper, Tarski insists very much on this idea. No? The idea of logical notion is based on the idea of Klein, and so on. General idea about mathematics, about invariance, and something like that. This does not appear in the Lindenbaum-Tarski paper, which was published many years before. All right. So you have here all the details. And in this paper, this is the pages of the paper of Tarski. He's talking about this during a while, about like 5 pages. It's a complete description of the situation. But someone, he didn't know, because he says in this paper, he said in this paper, nobody so far as I know has yet attempted to do it. Yeah. But someone noticed that this mathematician, Friedrich Ignaz Motter, wrote a paper in 1946, which is called An Extension of Klein-Erlanger Program Logic as Event Theory. Up to now, I didn't have time to study this paper and so on, but it's just some information about the situation. So there are a lot of things to explore about this historical situation, about characterizing logic as a logical notion, putting forward this idea of logical notion. And what I want to say also, which is very important to me, is that when we are talking about logical notion, in which sense? Because Tarski say, well, this is kind of very natural in some sense. You can see here the quotation. But nowadays, if what we can point to different things. This theory of logical notion, as presented by Tarski, you cannot find in any textbook. Yeah. If you have a counter example, I will be glad to hear about that. So it does not appear. I mean, if you open a book of first order logic, because it's connected with first order logic, will you have a chapter of about logical notion in the sense of Tarski? No. Nobody's talking about that. And this is by contrast by the fact that this paper by Tarski, editor and published by Cochrane, is the most cited paper of the journal, History and Philosophy of Logic. But we see here one of the problems of logic. I mean, people are interested in the history of logic and people are working in mathematical logic. Now, if you open a book of mathematical logic, you will not find this definition of Tarski of the fourth logical notion. Why not? That's a question I'm asking. Yeah, that's a very interesting question. And another question, which is related to this one, is that when we are thinking about logical notion, we will not use this terminology, logical notion. We will speak about concept and what are the basic notion, like tools or something like that. And people will speak about quantifiers, truth table for propositional logic, variables, constants, proofs, inference, deduction, completeness, and all this kind of stuff. In all this kind of stuff, you don't find this idea of logical notion as it was conceived by Tarski and Lindbergh. So I think this a very strange situation. But what can I say? We will not remake the history of modern logic today. I don't think so. But so let's go directly now after this historical presentation. Let's go directly to the problem. So here. When we have a situation with only two elements, structure with two elements, and one binary relation, these are the four logical notions. Yeah. This is what Lindbergh Tarski already said, and Tarski is repeating this later on. emptiness, universality, and identity and difference. And why these are logical notions? Because this situation is repeated in all kind of situations, independently of the cardinality. Everybody can understand the situation independently of cardinality. Yes. I guess you can imagine that. I will not detail this point here. It's independent of cardinality. Of course, we are here taking the simple example. All right. So these are the four basic notions of that can be understood among any kind of situation. I will use this word at this point. Any kind of situation. But it does not mean that we can axiomatize this situation. That's a very important point. It doesn't mean that we can axiomatize. We can understand, but we cannot necessarily axiomatize. So let's go to axiomatization. Axiomatization here. So there are something you can axiomatize or not. Sure. What does it mean to axiomatize? It's to find some formulation or formalization which is describing the situation. Sure. I will not detail much about that, but because this was in my previous paper, well, this is a way to axiomatize this configuration. At the same time, we can see that it's axiomatizing something else also. And Tarski developed model theory. Now, if we go to this four logical notion, what can we see? We can formulate. We can formulate here up. We can formulate up in natural language. What are the four logical notions? We can have a formulation of that. Emptiness. Nobody is in relation with anybody. Universality. Everybody is in relation with everybody. Identity. Everybody is in relation only with himself. Difference. Everybody is in relation with everybody except with himself. So when we are working with natural language, it seems that these four formulations are at the same level. But are they really at the same levels? No, they are not at the same level. Because emptiness, we can formulate in a first order formula without equality, universality also, and identity and difference, we cannot. So this shows that we have to be very careful about what is formalization. And there is not necessarily a coincidence between first order logic and natural language. And few people, even students of logic, in philosophical logic, mathematical logic, few people know that we cannot axiomatize, we cannot formulate identity in first order logic. This situation is completely confused because, we have first order logic with equality. Well, of course, with equality, because it's completely artificial. you decide that you will introduce identity. But if you don't have it, can you define it? That's the point. You understand? So, and there is a confusion about the way to express it, about the name, about the symbol, and that's why I prefer to use two different names. I will say with equality, if we are talking about formal language, and identity, we are talking about the notion itself. And these things are confused all the time, Few people, very few people can understand that, unfortunately. Unless, besides the fact that in this paper of Wilfred George, which is called Elementary Predicate Logic, which is the first paper of the first volume of the Book of Philosophical Logic of Dov Gabay, which is a encyclopedia which is published since 83. Sorry, 83. So in this paper of Rogers, there is a proof that you cannot axiomatize identity in first order logic without equality. So, well, and the proof is using compacity. I will talk about that. And sorry, at some point I asked Rogers, well, do you know who originally proved this result, this negative result, which is according to his presentation? It's just quite. His presentation is paper, but it's quite a little book. It's like 50 pages. So I asked him, well, do you know who is the author of this proof? He told me, I don't know. But he told me something which is even it's very strange. He told me, I don't know. But anyway, we can express identity in first order logic. So his reply was completely contradictory, because he himself proved that it was not possible to express. So I think very few people are able to make the difference between the fact that we can introduce logical constants of identity and the fact that identity cannot be defined in first order logic without identity. And this is the main point of my reading my present here. So let me go back. So sorry. That's here. So we have the fifth, the four logical notion, and then we have the fifth logical notion. What is the fifth logical notion? It's the all over the over situation. I'm just talking here about the situation of two elements with a binary relation. You see? So we have 6 situations here, which are double. And after that, we have the 4 logical notions. So we have 16 situations of graph of binary relation on the 2 element sets. Sure. And as you can see, step by step, here, on the left, on the right, it's the same situation. People say up to isomorphism, but it's the same situation. If you don't give a name, and I think for me it's a very important question, if you don't give a name, it's the same. The situation start to be different if you give a name. I don't know if it's clear for you. If you don't give a name, it's the same situation. So, anyway. So to simplify, we have 6 situations here. And this sixth situation, by opposition to the fourth situation here. All right, that you can see here. By opposition to this fourth situation, this is what I am calling this is what I'm calling the sixth, the fifth logical notion. Now, what's the difference? If you go here, for each of the four logical notion, you have only one graph. You agree? Only one graph. Now, in the case of the fixed notion, on the fixed notion, or the fifth notion, it's not only one graph. It's 12 graph. I will say sixth because I don't like this duplication. But anyway, so six graph. So the question is, can you do we have good reason to call this a logical notion? My reply is connected here with the dictionary. Is that variety in the dictionary? There are two features of dictionary of the definition of variety. It's something which is varied and diversified, sure, to give variety to a date, and unity also, with different of kind of strings. So it's a mixed variety, it's a mixed of diversity of unity. And I think this is exactly the idea. So this is the common sense of variety in the dictionary. So I think this is exactly the idea of what we are facing here. We have something which are diverse, diverse. Sorry, something we have which are diverse, because each situation is diverse from the other one, but they have something in common. And what is this something they have in common? It's to be opposed to logical negation. So it's a negative feature. But this is not a problem, because we can think about we have this behavior to think about negation, about negative things. All right, so this is some explanation here. So we can think positively. What I'm saying is that we can think positively about a negative thing. That's what I'm saying about diversity. And I have some other examples that I didn't put here. It's the philosophy of negation. For example, if you think about what is a non-cat, well, what is a non-cat? Non-cat, it's an amazing set of heterogeneous things. Yes, because non-cat can be a car, can be a neighbor, and so on. So that's why I think it makes sense to call to consider variety as a logical notion. But this is, in fact, this qualification has no decisive impact on the enigma. So what is enigma? The enigma is the following. What is? Is it possible to axiomatize the logical notion of variety in first order logic without equality? Is it possible to put all this structure to find a formula? Is it possible to find a formula which models are exactly this 12 in the case of binary structure with a little elements, exactly this structure. That was my that's why the way I put the enigma. Yeah. And I received different answers that I will analyze and explain now. All right. First of all, false solution. False solution, well, you say we don't we don't want emptiness, we don't want any of logical notion. So we don't want emptiness, we don't want universality. Emptiness is here. Yeah. The negation of emptiness is that. The negation of universality is that. Identity we cannot axiomatize, but we can express the negation of identity. The same with difference. We can express the negation of difference. So we can express the difference of all these things. And then if we want to have the expression of the variety, it will be the conjunction of these four formulas. Sure. But it doesn't work. I can show you here. Why it doesn't work? Well, there are several examples. Non-emptiness. So you see this. This is a reverse situation. Let's focus on the left. Well, non-emptiness, of course. Here you have no emptiness. No universality because not everything is related to everything. No identity because this one is not related with himself. No difference. Why no difference? Because there is someone which is not related to himself. This one or this one. All right. So you can see that this way to proceed does not characterize variety. You cannot characterize variety this way. This will be the simplest intuition, negation of each of the terms. Now someone gave me another false solution, which works, but only in the case of the binary case. A binary case means only when we have two elements. Sorry. So it's a very nice proposal. Very nice proposal. And you can check that every of these 12 non-logical notions are models of this formula. You can check this one by one if you want. So the guy who sent me this proposal, he was thinking about this situation of binary of structure where we have two elements. But this formula here, we want this formula to characterize variety for any kind of cardinalities. In the same way that in the case of logical notion. Sure. So here is a counterexample for free case elements. Okay, I hope you succeed to convince yourself by watching this screen. And now let's see at 3 solutions to the enigma. I mean, the first one I will not detail because it was sent to me by this famous logician, Alasdair Quart. But and then on the website you can see the full paper of it and so. But his presentation is a bit confused because what he's presenting in his paper is the fact that you cannot axiomatize identity. Sure. So he's not directly responding to the question. And he's using very sophisticated, if I can say, very sophisticated techniques. And it's not clear if we need really to use that. But you can examine, there is some details here. The Ehrenfreude is using Ehrenfreude phrase games. And if we are going into the history of logic, Ehrenfreude was a Polish logician who was a husband of Tarski doctor, and Fraisse was a good friend of Tarski. Okay, so now let's go to a reply, which is quite straight by this guy from Hungary. The fact that we cannot axiomatize the variety, according to him, is a direct consequence that identity is not axiomatizable. Why? Because he say, well, if variety was if there was a formula for variety, we will have a formula for the negation of variety, of course. And then if you add to this the negation of emptiness, negation of universality, you have identity or difference. And then you put, as he says, there exists x such that x. And then immediately you will be able to axiomatize identity, and we know that it is not possible for another reason. I mean, he didn't prove that, but there is a reason proving that it's not possible. All right, so let's to finish my talk. Let's present the third result, which I think is the more interesting, which I received later on by the student of the Stanford University, a very young student. Sure. And he's proving that we cannot axiomatize variety using a direct proof, and very simple proof. Now, if you want to understand this proof, you have to understand that this part of the proof is written in meta language. Yeah. If you want to examine all the detail later on, you can have a look at it. But this proof is written in a meta language proof. It's written in a meta language. Well, you have to be aware that we can make the distinction between language and meta language. Now, what he's saying is that if it would be possible to axiomatize the notion of variety, then, according to a theorem of Anderton, we will have contradiction with this situation, that a theory with two epimorphic models verify the same formulas. That's the point. So I think that is very interesting because it's quite simple. It's quite simple. And what can I say? It's quite simple. So he's quoting he's making a design of the situation. So I repeat, if the notion of variety it was possible to express the notion of variety in first of the logic, these two structures will have the same model, but we can see it's not the case according to the situation here. And then you can check the theorem of Anderton he's talking about, which is in the book of Anderton here. Mathematical structure logic. There are two important points, I think, in this discussion. Do we need, because one of the consequences of this result by Elijah Spiegel is that if Anderton theorem does not use capacity, and I think the homomorphism theorem of Anderton does not use capacity, if this proof does not choose capacity, we can prove that we cannot axiomatize variety and identity without using capacity. In the paper by Rogers, is using capacity. So that's one of my main interests. Do we need to use capacity to prove axiomatizability of identity or this notion here we are talking here today? And what about the theorem of Anderton to finish the paper? Well, I was asking my friend from Poland, Ian Sigmund, who likes very much the history of logic, and he believes that this result, he believes that this theorem of Anderton is due, which is expressed in the book of Anderton, is due to Anderton himself. We don't know. I mean, Anderton was a very modest person and things like that, you know. So if we want to look at the history, we don't know if this result, this Anderton homomorphism theorem, is really due to Anderton or something like that. And he makes some comments about Mostrovsky and so on. So there is still a lot of work to do about the history of this homomorphism theorem. What is homomorphism theorem? The homomorphism theorem, it says that in this case, if we have an homomorphism from a structure from A to B, yeah, from A to B, from two structures, homomorphism. Isso significa que This means that the two solutions obey the same formula. Yeah. And this is this theorem that Elijah is using in this proof. All right, so I will finish here. I think there are a lot of historical, philosophical, and mathematical questions related to this topic.
Thank you, Jean-Yves. So now we have some time for questions or comments.
I have a question.
Sure.
On the second solution, you showed I think it was the next one, the following one. He assumes you have an axiomatization for a variety, right? And he used the negation of this of variety, right? So, but if you to take the negation, you would have to take something like the disjunction of the negations of each axiom. Right? But if you have an infinite set of axioms, an axiom scheme, you have an infinite disjunction. Or did I understand something wrong?
No, if we suppose that we have a finite axiomatization of variety, we can put the negation of it.
Yes, but if we don't know if the axiom set is finite.
But we don't suppose that. We suppose that we have a finite axiom.
So this solution is not so general.
Sorry?
So this answer is not so general as the next one.
No, it's general because we want to know if it's possible to axiomatize identity in first order logic in the usual sense, recursive set of axioms, you know. So recursive finite set of axioms. So if you have a set of axioms, recursive, finite, and so on, for variety, we put the negation of that. That's the point.
Okay.
Okay, so Magdalena, you may speak.
Yeah, it is me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So first, some historical correction. First time this paper by Tarski was delivered in Wrocław in 1959. It was the last visit of Tarski in Poland. It was his famous conference on infinistic methods.
59? 59?
59.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And second question, because, I not quite understand this problem. We know that identity equality is not defined in first order logic, pure. And it seems to me that it is enough to following the to derive the following conclusion, that if you restrict logical notions to pure first order logic, so identity is not. If you add identity as a new symbol, you can axiomatize. However, it is still dubious whether this is a logical concept or not, because you can define numerical quantifiers. So anyway, Tarski was conscious of that, and according to him, the solution is a little bit conventional. And it seems to me that your logical square should be supplemented because we should have universality, non-universality, emptiness, non-emptiness, and I think that you should use hexagon with identity and difference as middle point. So identity is similar like truth in modal logic.
Yeah.
So universality should imply identity. Identity should imply non-emptiness. And also you have the following possibility that non-emptiness and non-universality are not empty. So it seems to me that this hexagon is more pure logical than your consideration.
Okay. I like very much the exact one, so I will think about that. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. But then you say in 1999, Tarski was already presenting a lecture about that in Wrocław.
In Wrocław. Maybe that Ursula remembers that. I don't know. Anyway, it was in Wrocław Mathematical Society. It is noted by Zygmunt in second volume of Tarski's selection in Polish. He edited, and there's a note in second volume about this lecture. It is documented by materials of Wrocław branch of Wrocław Mathematical Society.
Thanks.
Okay, so any other question or comments? Maria Martinez?
Yes, thank you, Yaniv. I have a very clarificatory question from the philosophical part. So I am not an expert on Tarski, but what I get from the paper is that a notion for being logical has to play a grounding role in mathematics and something like set theory or logic, and not only be commonly present and formalizable in first order logic without equality. But for the case of the fifth logical notion, it is not so clear to me that it is not that it is actually grounding anything in both mathematics and logic. So maybe you can tell me a bit more about the grounding role that this fifth notion actually plays, or if it doesn't matter.
No, sure. It's the fifth logical notion is, in some sense, is purely negative. It's all other things, So you have some things which are relatively clear to determine, like identity, difference, and so on, emptiness and totality, and then you have all the other things. But what I'm arguing in this paper is that all of the things make sense by themselves, by opposition. It's a way to promote negation, like you can have a positive idea of negation. All these other things, but all the other things, they make sense also in some sense. That's the idea.
Yes, but at that point, what it seems to me that it's happening is that the property is emerging, not grounding. It's emerging from the role that the other properties are playing, right? And so, as I mentioned, I am not a reader of Tarski, but my impression from the paper is that logical notions are the grounds of logic and mathematics. And this one seems to be the result of having all these properties and maybe having some additional reasoning involving negation. But it's not clear to me that plays the exact role that logical notions are expected to play. But it's just my intuition.
Yeah, but you have to see that the negation is a very powerful tool. I mean, you can think positively of something, like these four logical notions. You can think positively of each of these logical notions, and then you have the negation of them. In the same way that you have like a cat, and you have the negation of a cat, a non-cat. What is a non-cat? A non-cat is a logical notion. It's everything which is not a cat.
Thank you, Yaniv. And hi, Yaniv.
Sorry, I was speaking muted. Juan, you may speak now.
Oh, thank you. Yaniv, it's very nice to see you, really. Good to see you. When you talk about emptiness, universality, identity, and difference, I was thinking about analogy in this sense. Emptiness sounds to me like equivocism, equivocal terms. Universality sounds to me like univocism. And analogy, when you talk about identity and difference, I am not sure if I am looking for someone that is not in your talk, or what do you think? I try to relate this to analogy, and that's.
No, thanks, Juan, but I don't think there is any problem. You know, if you think about the negation of something like analogy, you can think about the different way to think about analogy. And the negation of every concept, it's a different situation. So each negation is a particular, it's at the same time, there is a universal dimension because there are some properties. But at the same time, there are some particularities. You know? If you think about something which analogies or not, and as we know, using the square proposition, there are different ways to oppose something like that. Different way to oppose. So I think my talk was going in this direction. In the sense that if you think about the four logical notion of Tarski, it's not two. It's not two. So it's not two notion. It's not two. So you have four. That's why at the beginning I had the idea that will be a nice square because we have four. We have four logical notion. So it's not a dichotomy. It's not dichotomy. We have four logical notions. So I wanted to investigate the relation between these four logical notions to see if they correspond to a square. And doing this work, I see that it was not exactly the standard square proposition. That's the point. Yeah. And then, as Jan Wolanski was saying, maybe we have to go to an hexagon to have a better explanation between the situation of logical notion. So that's a good example to see that dichotomy or square maybe is not enough. We have to have a more extensive notion of opposition.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Any other question or comment? Okay, so thank you very much again, Jean. Thank you very much, everybody who attended this talk.
Thank you, everybody.